The first body was found in an alley behind Poor Richard's pub. It was one of the bar regulars, a man named Danny Mahoney, known for drinking too much and heckling the Scranton Strangler conspiracy theorists. His body was torn apart in a way that didn't make sense, gashes too deep for a knife, too precise for an animal attack. The police were baffled. Dwight Schrute read the reports in the Scranton Times and knew exactly what was happening. A highly trained assassin had come to town. At first, Dwight assumed it was a new agent of the Strangler, or perhaps a rogue beat farmer eliminating competition. But then a second body turned up in a locked storage unit on the outskirts of town. A woman, throat slashed, her belongings untouched. Dwight had seen enough. This was no ordinary killer. This was something else. At work the next day, Dwight made the mistake of sharing his findings with the rest of the office. A ruthless, highly skilled assassin is hunting people in Scranton, Dwight declared, slapping a file onto his desk. I am the only one who sees the pattern. The police are, as usual, useless. But I have reason to believe that I am the next target. Jim Halpert leaned back in his chair, barely hiding a smirk. Wait, let me get this straight. An elite hitman has come to Scranton, and for some reason, they've set their sights on paper salesman/beat farmer? Not just any paper salesman, Jim. The most skilled self-defense expert in the Tri-County area. I have thwarted more assassination attempts than you will ever know. Pam shook her head, trying not to laugh. And what's your evidence that you're the next target? Dwight leaned in, lowering his voice. Strange noises at Schrute Farms. A figure watching from the fields. An old scarecrow that keeps moving on its own. Kevin let out a small gasp. Wait, that actually sounds kind of creepy. Thank you, Kevin, Dwight said, nodding. At least someone takes security seriously. Michael Scott poked his head out of his office. Did someone say assassin? Oh my God, are we in a Jason Bourne situation? Do I have to go into hiding? Should I grow a beard? Because I can, but I won't like it. Michael, focus. This is serious. Dwight snapped. If anything happens to me, you will need to appoint a successor to continue my investigation. I suggest myself. Stanley barely looked up from his crossword. Let me know how that works out for you. Jim leaned forward. So, Dwight, how exactly do you plan on stopping this assassin? Dwight straightened his tie. I will confront him, on my farm, using only my skills, my wits, and my extensive collection of medieval weaponry. Jim nodded. Ah, yes, of course. Well, in that case, good luck. He began his investigation immediately. Mose had already been on high alert. There had been strange noises at Schrute Farms for days, rustling in the cornfields at night, an old scarecrow inexplicably moving from one end of the farm to another. Mose swore he had seen someone standing outside the barn one night, just watching. It's happening, Dwight, Mose whispered over breakfast. He's here. Dwight adjusted his glasses. Who's here? Mose looked around the kitchen, leaned in close. The man in the mask. The big one. The one with the knife. Dwight froze. Describe the mask. Mose hesitated, then whispered. White, blank, like a face with no soul. That night, Dwight set up a perimeter. He carried a sharpened hoe, a reinforced pitchfork, and a crossbow he had fashioned out of reclaimed barn wood. Mose stayed inside, too afraid to join. The farm was deathly quiet. And then, near the tree line, a shadow moved. Dwight fired a warning shot. The bolt disappeared into the darkness. Silence. He took a step forward. Another shadow moved, closer now. a hulking figure, barely visible in the moonlight. And then, with agonizing slowness, a pale white face emerged from the shadows. Michael Myers. He stood completely still, his dark, hollow eyes locked onto Dwight. A massive, withered knife hung at his side. The two men stared at each other for what felt like eternity. Then Michael stepped forward. Dwight acted fast. He swung the hoe in a wide arc, but Myers caught it effortlessly and wrenched it from his grip, snapping the wooden handle in half like a twig. Dwight stumbled back, but he wasn't out of tricks yet. He reached into his pocket and hurled a handful of beet powder at Myers' face, a homemade blinding agent he had been perfecting for years. Myers didn't flinch. "Oh no," Dwight muttered. The killer lunged. Dwight barely dodged, rolling into the dirt and scrambling to his feet. He bolted toward the barn, slamming the door shut behind him and barricading it with a steel rake. "Mose, code red, get the battle axes." Mose, trembling, rushed to retrieve the ancient weapons. But it was too late. The barn door exploded inward, splinters flying as Myers stepped through. Dwight gritted his teeth. "You've picked the wrong farm, buddy." Then the battle truly began. The barn was a war zone, splintered wood and hay strewn across the floor like casualties of a brutal battle. Dwight's heart pounded in his chest as he ducked behind a stack of hay bales, clutching a rusty pitchfork, sweat dripping from his forehead. The sound of Michael Myers' slow, methodical footsteps echoed through the barn, his heavy breathing the only noise breaking the silence. "Come on, Dwight," he muttered to himself, his mind racing. "You can do this. You've trained for this. You are prepared." Mose, shaking, had barricaded himself inside the loft above, eyes wide with terror as he peeked over the edge, watching the chaos unfold. He was no fighter, but he could see the immense struggle below. Down on the ground floor, Dwight moved cautiously, his mind calculating every move. He knew Myers. He understood the killer's rhythm, the way he stalked, the way he was relentless but predictable. He had fought against the elements for years on Schrute Farms. He'd faced this head-on. Dwight gripped the pitchfork tighter, feeling the familiar weight of it in his hands. He was a survivalist, a strategist. This wasn't just about brute strength. It was about using the environment, about controlling the space. Michael Myers appeared at the other end of the barn, his presence almost suffocating. He didn't hurry, just a slow, deliberate pace. He was a predator, and Dwight knew it was now or never. Dwight lunged out from behind the hay bales, thrusting the pitchfork toward Myers. But Myers was too fast. He grabbed the shaft, twisting it with terrifying ease, pulling Dwight off balance. Before Dwight could react, Myers threw him to the ground, the impact rattling through his bones. But Dwight wasn't done. He rolled to his feet, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead. "You can't break me, Michael," Dwight hissed through gritted teeth. He grabbed a nearby sledgehammer from the tool's rack, swinging it with all his might. The hammer collided with Myers' chest, sending the killer stumbling back. For a split second, Dwight saw an opening, a chance to land a real blow. But just as quickly, Myers recovered, his hand shooting out and grabbing Dwight by the throat. The grip was like iron, choking the air from his lungs. Mose's voice echoed from aloft, panic rising. "Dwight, get up. You can do this." Dwight's vision blurred, his heart thundering in his chest. His body screamed for air, his muscles weakening. But then, he remembered the trap. The one he'd set just in case of an emergency. The one designed for a different predator. With a burst of energy, Dwight twisted, slamming his elbow into Myers' stomach. The killer staggered back, just as Dwight reached for the lever beside him. A massive net shot out from the rafters, tangling around Myers' legs and pulling him to the ground. But even in the net, Myers was a force to be reckoned with. Dwight scrambled, grabbing a bucket of sulfur and salt he'd been storing for more traditional farm problems. He hurled the contents at Myers' face, temporarily blinding him, but Myers didn't flinch. He just kept coming, even more enraged. "This is your final warning," Dwight yelled, his voice hoarse, his body screaming from the effort. "Leave Schrute Farms now." But Michael Myers didn't hear. He didn't understand. The only thing that mattered to him was his target, and Dwight Schrute had made a mistake. He had underestimated the killer's relentless desire to finish what he'd started. With all his remaining strength, Dwight turned and sprinted toward the barn's hidden trapdoor, the one leading to the cellar. If he could just get there, he might be able to outsmart him again. But Myers was fast, too fast. As Dwight reached the door, Myers' hand shot out, grabbing the back of his shirt and pulling him backward. Dwight fought, kicking, biting, but it was like battling a force of nature. He slammed his elbow into Myers' ribs, breaking free for a moment, but not before taking a knife swiped to his shoulder. Pain exploded through Dwight's body, but he wasn't done. He couldn't be. With a final, desperate burst of strength, Dwight grabbed a nearby shovel and swung it with all his might. The edge of the blade collided with Myers' skull, sending the killer staggering back. For a split second, Dwight saw what might have been a glimmer of hesitation in Myers' eyes. But it was fleeting. As quickly as it appeared, it was gone. "You want me, Myers?" Dwight growled, stepping forward. "You'll have to kill me." Myers slowly reached for his knife again, but Dwight was faster now. He swung the shovel again, aiming for the killer's hand. The blow landed with a sickening crunch, knocking the knife to the floor. But Myers didn't stop. He didn't even hesitate. He lunged at Dwight, pushing him toward the wall with an inhuman strength. The two crashed to the floor, rolling in a deadly embrace. Dwight's mind raced as he tried to think of something, anything, to use to his advantage. He couldn't let Schrute Farms fall. And then, in a flash of inspiration, he grabbed a nearby lantern from the ground, shattering it over Myers' back. The flame flared up, catching the killer's clothes on fire. Myers' movement slowed for a moment as he struggled to extinguish the flames, but that was all Dwight needed. He pushed off the ground, grabbing the closest weapon, his medieval battle axe, and swung it with every last ounce of strength. It connected with a sickening thud, and Myers let out a low, guttural growl as the axe lodged in his shoulder. The killer staggered back, retreating toward the door, smoke still billowing from his charred clothes. Dwight, bloodied and bruised, stood tall. "You've lost," Dwight whispered. Myers, ever relentless, disappeared into the night. The battle wasn't over, but for now, Schrute Farms was safe. Dwight let out a slow breath, his body aching, his mind spinning. He had survived, for now, and he would be ready.